Clustering, which is also called cluster analysis, is the task of categorizing the objects based on their similarities. Clustering is not an algorithm itself, but it defines the solution to the problem of categorizing objects that do not have labels. Thus, it includes many different algorithms since it cannot be exactly defined. A cluster might be defined as a group with small distances between cluster members, the dense areas of the data, or specific statistical distributions. There are mainly two types of clustering in general: hard clustering and soft clustering. In hard clustering, each object belongs to a cluster or not. Thus, there is only single membership of the objects in the cluster. However, in soft clustering, each object belongs to a cluster to a certain probabilistic degree. In this case, there are multiple memberships of the objects such that an object might belong to several clusters with different probabilities. Here we are going to explain more about different types of clusters. A well-separated cluster is a set of objects in which each object is closer to every other object in the same cluster compared to the other clusters. Normally, a threshold is defined for the comparison. A prototype-based cluster consists of a set of objects in which each object is closer to the prototype that defines that specific cluster. An example of the prototype-based cluster would be centroid or mean for continuous data, and for categorical data, the most representative member of the cluster. Another type of the clusters is the graph-based cluster. If the data is represented as a graph where the nodes are the objects and the edges show the connections, every connected part is a cluster such that its elements are all related, and they are not related to the other clusters. This clustering is not suitable for noisy data. An example of this cluster type would be contiguity-based clustering. Density-based clusters are another type of clusters, which is defined as following: a dense region of objects that is surrounded by a region of low density. This definition is often employed when the clusters are irregular or intertwined and noise and outliers exist in the data. Shared property or conceptual clusters include sets of objects that share some specific properties. This definition encompasses all other definitions of clusters. In order to solve different clustering problems, there are various clustering algorithms, such as k-means clustering, hierarchical clustering, t-sne clustering, and db-scan or db-scan clustering.